Okay, ready? Welcome to CineMcCue, where we chat all things film and faith through our lens of storytellers and as a creative, married duo. I'm Ian McCue, filmmaker, actor, and writer with over 10 years in the industry.
And I'm India, photographer and actress. Together we discuss the art of filmmaking and review what we're watching, all to discover what should go next in your CineMcCue. Let's do it.
Let's go.
Welcome back, friends.
Welcome.
To CineMcCue.
Oh,
Cheers.
Cheers.
It's a wine day.
Guess so. This is old wine.
Wine day for Wednesday.
Today we are talking about Wednesday, the movie show.
The show movie. But we're recording this on a Sunday, so super fun.
Don't tell anybody that. We did this on a Wednesday for sure.
Wednesday on a Sunday.
For sure. But welcome back to CineMcCue. I'm Ian.
I'm still India.
That's good. And we are a married couple that loves film.
And we're still married.
Yes, and still a couple that loves film.
Still.
Oh.
We're excited to talk about Wednesday, the viral Netflix series?
Yeah.
TV series that came out, I think, in December. And within the first few weeks, popped off the charts, got a ton of buzz. So we're here to discuss why that is and why and when you should watch that in your CineMcCue.
Yes, absolutely. And it has been number one on Netflix for a long time, just recently got bumped down. So it actually was on the top 10 of most watched shows in the world, hours spent watching, which is incredible because that's competing against shows that have 10 seasons, that have, so many more years worth of content. And Wednesday has one season out right now, and it is now top 10 this year for hours watched. It's in the billions.
That's crazy.
It's like 37 billion. I made that number up, but it's something close to that of hours spent by people watching it. So it has gone viral.
Crazy.
People are liking it, or at least watching it. And we are here to tell you why you should or should not put it in your CineMcCue.
Let's do it.
Let's go.
All right.
Again, format, we have 4 points each. They might overlap. We did not talk about these points before, but we are going to discuss them, talk about them, and talk everything cinema about Wednesday.
And reminder, this is going to spoil some of what happens in this show. So if you have not watched it, stop listening right now, go watch it, and then come back and listen to this podcast. Or if you're like, I swear I'll never watch this show, by all means, continue. But we will be spoiling, so just
Absolutely.
so you know.
And maybe this will convince you to watch it, or maybe you were right and don't watch it. So hopefully our honest opinion will give you some further information onto your watching experience, and maybe you'll take a few bits out of this so you can go back and watch it again and appreciate the series even more.
Totally. All right. Do you want to kick us off?
Sure, I can. Let me take
one of your discussion
sip
points.
Of wine Wednesday. And
what struck you about Jenna Ortega in this show, Ian?
I was about to talk about every other character except her.
Okay, go for it.
Honestly, we finished the series a little while ago, and I probably should have gone back to look at all the names of the characters. So give us some grace if we mess this up. I might just describe a character as opposed to calling them by name. But hopefully you can help me out.
I'll help find the name.
Absolutely. So I wanted to kind of start off about how a lot of what drives characters' ambitions or personalities or how they interact socially is that so much is ridden on shame. And a lot of the main characters come from a place of being shamed or different or the black sheep of the community, or it's like, oh, you don't belong here, so we're going to put you somewhere else, and they make you feel guilty for not being who we want you to be. And I was just saying that that's a theme that I think why a lot of people latched onto this series, because they might feel like they're the odd one out. They might feel like they don't belong. They might feel like they have qualities that aren't accepted anywhere else, and they long for a place that, oh, all of these other kids are also not normal, the normies or whatever. And so I'm going to go to this place, this school, to try to belong in a place because I've never belonged somewhere before. And we see that in Wednesday's character of, after trying to redeem her brother's bullying by putting piranhas in the pool, flesh-eating piranhas, and then she's like, oh, you are too different, you are too violent, you're not welcome here, your family's weird, we're gonna ship you off. We see it in Enid's character of how she hasn't fully developed and gotten her howl and transformed into this werewolf.
Is so cute, by the way. She's like not fully a werewolf, but they call it I'm waiting for my howl. I think it was so pure.
But then the one interaction with her mom, she's gaslit, she's shamed. Oh, you haven't arrived yet. You are not who we wanted you to be. And then also the expectation that Wednesday's family has of like, we have this, persona to upkeep. You must go and be this, and we're going to send the hand to keep an eye on you. And there's just so much pressure from outside sources to be a certain way and an expectation to be that way. And it's kind of heartbreaking because I grew up in a small farm town. I wanted to be a filmmaker and an actor, and there was kind of unknowingly a lot of that put onto me from friends and family and people that I interacted with and teachers, and like there's just a social expectation of who you should be. And I think that's why I resonated with this, because I was like, I get that. I've been the, oddball out. I've been the one that wanted to go be a Hollywood actor from a town of 201 people, from a small farm school with drive your tractor to school day. And so that was my first point was, I think people really connected with this because we can all kind of relate to feeling left out and wanting to belong. So I think that was a really cool narrative that they ran with, and they leaned into the underdogs, the people that weren't, the most likely to be the hero. And they told their story.
So if you remember in this show, there's kind of two camps. There's like the normies, which are the normal people, average humans, don't have magical gifting, no abilities, stuff like that. And then they're called the outcasts, or the students at Nevermore are kind of nicknamed that by the normies, is like the derogatory way of saying like, oh, they're different, they have magic, they have some kind of power, so they're the outcasts.
Us and them, right?
Yeah, and I think I wrote that down as like underdog and unbelieved outcasts becoming the heroes. That's kind of one of the elements that I think drives a lot of really successful cinema, is this idea of, oh, I can latch on to this. Like in Outer Banks, what is it? The Pogues and the something.
Yeah.
I'll have to research that one. But
we'll probably go over Outer Banks in one of these
or
episodes.
Or in the Hunger Games, there's like District 12 is like the edge of the edge.
The
and then
mining,
District 1 is like... Yeah, and I think so. It's not uncommon that we see this underdog theme being like really popular in cinema, but it's also not uncommon that we gravitate towards that. And bringing it into scripture, if you are familiar with the story of Jesus, like underdog, born in the lowest of the lows, technically like born out of wedlock to a Virgin Mary who's pregnant while she's engaged, and they don't know how she got pregnant. She's like, it was the Holy Spirit. And everyone's like, yeah, right. Like, and so we see this like completely bizarre outcast experience. And then out of this comes the king, who is the Messiah and saves the people, and then literally gets sacrificed and crucified because no one believes that that's true. So
they're scared of they're like, hey, this person from nowhere is claiming all these things, and like
there's no way that could be the king. It has to be something else. So I think there's like a innate human reason why we all gravitate toward this like underdog story. And in Wednesday, like Wednesday Addams is the character from the older Addams family kind of storyline, where it's this bizarre, darker family. They're all interested in the macabre and like the horrific in kind of a weird way. So it's a play off of that. And so she comes in as the unbelieved outcast, becoming the hero. I wrote down that she's like relatable and inspirational for viewers with family history. There's an element of like there's like whispers and rumors that her dad may have murdered someone. And she comes into this school not only already loving this like darker, weird kind of fascination with death kind of thing, but also the kids know that she got transferred in because of the piranha incident. So they're already like, what? And then the teachers know what her dad allegedly did. And so I think there's all this interesting like kind of family history dynamic that is brought in with her. And I caught that like she kind of inspires people that you can break family trauma, family cycles. You don't have to, just because something happened in your family history doesn't mean that that's who you are kind of thing. So I think if you're looking for a fresh way to like watch the show, like definitely kind of look for that sense too, because she makes her own path known at the school and kind of becomes this detective that kind of saves the day at the end, even though she's like the outcast of the outcasts sort of thing.
Absolutely.
That's what I got.
So you actually touched on my third point, which I literally just wrote. She's an underdog story, and Jesus is an underdog story.
There we go.
And that's how we can, I feel like that is why so many people connect to these films and shows is because people want the unsuspecting hero to come in and offer a salvation, a saving that is even undeserved, and they root for the hero or press against the hero, which makes them stronger. And everyone can kind of relate to that in some sense, because most successful people started as underdogs. Most, husbands and wives and children have underdog stories that they go through in their life, whether in a school system or in a family dynamic or in friendships or in loss of loved ones or jobs, or just situational, environmental, the way that they landed in life, the cards that they were dealt. And I think everyone kind of roots for that. So I had that exact same thing. And then you actually...
Marriage.
Yeah, my second point you also even touched on.
Okay.
Where I said that Wednesday was being judged for her family's sins.
Yeah.
Right? It's a generational sin of certain teachers and professors or principals judged, or friends even, or fellow classmates would look at her and judge her and put her in a category because of who her parents were. And their supposed sins at the school with the murder of the one student. And so that hit home for me. And I was like, oh, why is she judged?
And they instantly started accusing her of murdering those students because she was in the woods at the same time or whatever.
Yeah.
When there's no evidence to support that. And she was even providing evidence for another case. Yeah. But it's like just the vibe was off because they suspected her from the start. Y'all, we could preach on that. Like, let's go.
And I just resonated with her because I've been in that place where I was like, my heart and my intention is so good and I'm genuinely trying to help, and no one believes me. They don't just not believe me, but they're also putting me in the category of you're in the wrong, and you are, what is, it's just real, right? We all kind of go through that in life where it's like, I genuinely am trying my best to help here.
Yeah.
And nobody doesn't just want that, but then they're blaming me for it. And I think we've all found ourselves in that place. And I was like, I don't want to be written off for generational trauma or sins. And like, my parents are great. My family's super close.
We're good. We love you guys.
We're good. And it's not about that, but I have friends that have been stuck in that. I have people that get labels placed on them because of their last name. And I'm sad for that, but I loved seeing Wednesday fight through that, all the doubt. She would have a theory, and she brought the DNA in the claw and was like, it has to be Xavier. And, the sheriff came back and was like, no, it's not. Like, and she even gets expelled at one point and doesn't give up because she believes in what she was called to do. In the midst of doubt, finds people that believes in her. And she's like, I can overcome this and don't want this to define me. I want to write that own story.
Come on, somebody. That's a whole sermon right there. Like when pastors are like, so Wednesday gets called out to do something and says, yes, I will walk upon the waters. We're not going to do that.
No.
But we could totally parallel like this calling put in her to like find the truth. And I think that's a line in there too. She's like, I care about the truth.
Yeah.
Like she just wants whatever it is, no matter how dark or disturbing it is. She's like, I just want to know the truth.
Willing to put her own name and life on the line to make it happen.
Yeah, I think that's a really powerful theme in what's supposed to be kind of like a teenager show. You know what I mean?
Yeah. In the search and advance towards truth, she is willing to sacrifice her image, herself, her own blood, sweat, tears, name, and status that she did obtain to find truth. So I think that's important. That truth is important, and grace isn't, or like love is important, and truth is important. But truth without love is evil and mean and hurtful, and love without truth is it like allows, so many other people have said this so much better than me, but like it allows space for you to not grow. It allows you to sit in places that aren't healthy for you. So I think truth and love need to coexist, and I think she started off her journey on seeking truth, and she learned how to love in the middle of it with Enid and her family's trauma and her past and who people were, and gave people second chances. It was really cool. Even befriended Eustace or whatever. Eugene.
I think it was Eugene with the bees.
It was Eugene with the bees. The other outcasts, like she found people, cared about them, and was faithful, and that was really cool.
Yeah, that bounces on to my next point, which was the show is basically about friendship, outcast underdogs, and like sticking to the truth no matter what. So the friendship aspect, I wrote down, Wednesday comes into a school with existing cliques and friend groups and gets offered friends, but pushes them away pretty instantly. And I think part of that is because she's being used to being rejected by other people. I said that.
Being used to being.
I think she's used to being rejected by other people. So it's part of like her past is coming in like, oh, I'm used to this. Like, it's okay if no one's my friend because I'm too much. I'm too bizarre anyway. But then she kind of discovers that, like, she also presents herself to the world in kind of a dark, mysterious way. And some people are attracted to that and some people are repelled by that. But in the end, drama set aside, friends come together. She makes new friendships when there's a common enemy. And it's kind of like the power of friendship saves the day, which can be a little cheesy. But I think in this instance, like, it was really pure. And there's a couple ups and downs leading to that finale that makes you think, oh my gosh, everyone's together. They're all going to fight this monster. And then they're like, just kidding, Wednesday's crazy. And then they all leave her again. But she still goes after the truth. So I think it kind of plays off of your point of like friendship and love and truth, like all intertwined is like the common theme of the show. And yeah, something that I found really, really pure in like a horror show, like pure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
Absolutely.
So I did my 2. I have 2 more.
Okay, I have one more. So
okay, let's go.
Yeah, let's go back to you. So you can get one, and then we'll both have one left.
Okay, so I was going to talk about how even though this is kind of, I wouldn't say it's a horror genre because it's still playful, but it's Tim Burton. So if you know his work, it's a little like leans into the obscure and like
darker themed.
Yes, it's darker for sure, but it's not like gory. I would say. Okay, I don't know.
There's scenes.
It's hard. It's Tim Burton. I think that's the way to describe it. It's
Absolutely.
Tim Burton. And so I wrote something about like one of the points that stood out to me about this show is that it's thematic horror without celebrating gore. And I think when we first started it, I was like, okay, I know going into it, Wednesday Addams is known for being this like kind of into the creepy, crawly,
look at her family,
macabre,
right? One of their family members is a severed hand.
Yes. So we know going into it that this is going to be a certain flavor of a little offbeat on purpose. But what I thought was interesting is though she like is interested in some of this like darker stuff. When students were getting murdered at her school, she goes to find the killer. She doesn't celebrate their death in like a weird, creepy way. It was kind of like, oh, this is obviously unjust, and I have to find who's behind this, which I thought was good and healthy because obviously murder is not good, death is sad. Like, I wanted to make sure they didn't just like play off of all this creepy, crawly death, let's celebrate and like in a weird witchcrafty way, and they didn't. I think they did a good job of, she's interested in it in like a peculiar, like Edgar Allan Poe kind of way. I have a weird interest with this stuff, but not in like a let's celebrate it, let's promote this, because if it was that way, I think I would be like, this is not a show that we should be watching or that should go viral or anything, but they did it in a good way that was like intriguing and darker for someone who's interested in more of those like creepy crawlies. For like Halloween fanatics without it being like totally like celebrating gore. So
yeah, absolutely. And so that makes me think of how numb we've come to on-screen deaths a lot of time.
Yeah. Because
so many shows and films have so much death, and there's so much death in real life that if we look at, Game of Thrones, or we look at all these war movies that.
What is it? The one you're watching right now? Walking Dead?
Oh, yeah.
Literally
Catching
The
up
Walking
on that
Dead.
One. And there's so much death that it's just like, oh, that's just another one. That's just another character. Oh, that's just another bullet shot. That's just another arrow fired. If we look at some of the films that have the most on-screen deaths, so not like war scenes like in Lord of the Rings or whatever, but we're seeing 300 to 500 on-screen deaths with things like, I think it was like Troy was one of them, was one of the top, maybe even number one. And there comes a time where we almost grow numb to it and we're like, oh man, I liked that character, well, let's move on.
Right.
But I think that this one, there was such a preciousness of life that Wednesday held in the midst of being this kind of obscure, darker family member, that she's like, life is precious, and something happened to someone, even though I didn't really know them that well, like the kid in the forest. And she's like, but justice needs to be done. This is there is something divine about a soul of a person and a human being that I agree with you, that I think that was really cool that they didn't celebrate it. And she's like, this is a big deal.
Yeah.
And this shouldn't be okay. So we need to solve this. And she
Which shows character growth. If you think about someone as iconic as Wednesday, who has a fascination with dark stuff, to care about students she doesn't know not living anymore. Like, that shows the arc of her growth and her desire for solving crimes and solving, like, the mysteries. And it brings us in as an audience to grow with her, to go on that journey with her and be like, what is actually happening? Because we all know innately that, you know, death is sad and that life does matter. So I think it's kind of a cool way to introduce this storyline that still stays true to her bizarre interest, but without it being, like, promoted. So
yeah, absolutely. Because I mean, even death that happened, you know, 30 years prior, 20 years prior, when the parents were in high school, like, is still talked about, and like, this should not happen in this town. Like, this is something that should be rare, should be never. But and I think that's really impactful, and kind of why I like TV shows now better than movies in a way, is because you get to develop with the characters, you get more characters, you get more time with them, and if they cherish life in these shows, when a death does happen, it's a lot more impactful. But when they're just killing off characters left and right, you kind of grow numb to it. You really do, which is sad.
Yeah,
and because granted it's just a character, but it's wild how we can watch cinema anymore and be like, well, there goes that character, there goes that character, there goes that character. And I love that they let you, you know, grow attached to these people. And so when bad things did happen, you cared more.
Yeah, I agree.
This show did a good job of making you care. So.
Good job, Wednesday.
Good job. Good job.
Do you have any more points?
I have one.
Okay, I have one more too.
Awesome. So this one is big time spoiler towards the end about the resurrection, right? So this is a two-parter.
Ooh.
So part one is there was half of the story. There was a page torn out of a book, and it looked like Wednesday Addams was standing in front of the school that was on fire. So everyone is blaming her. There's half the picture. People drew their entire opinion off of half of a picture.
Come on, let's go.
Then when the full picture comes out, it provides the storyline of the resurrection of the old evil guy with the, you know, pilgrim hat and all of this. I forget his name, but he was going to come back and he was going to destroy the school. And Wednesday Addams was that savior complex, or like where she was going to be the one protecting the school that was on fire because of this. So she was actually the hero. And so that's just a quick note to say, you know, careful drawing entire opinions on people or movies or shows or life because you might only have half the picture.
Come on, somebody. That's a good word. That's a good word.
Then the other part is resurrection, right? So the bad guys in this are longing for Goody Addams is this old ancestor that took out this bad guy that wanted to get rid of, you know, normies or get rid of the others and like what are they called? Like the
Outcasts. Normies.
Yeah. So normies versus outcasts, and the normies wanted to kind of get rid of them, and they were bad, and so they wanted to resurrect this old guy that they all praised and worshipped, so he could come back to destroy the school and get rid of everything that wasn't.
What was his name? Like Jedediah?
Probably.
Jedediah Jericho or something like that?
Something like that. You guys will know who we're talking about. I didn't write that note down.
The pilgrim dude.
But yeah, so there's this fight during the entire show for the resurrection of him. And I found myself rooting against it because he stood for evil. And I just, there are good people and bad people in this world that will watch that show and still not be rooting for that guy to be resurrected. And you're like, there's something wrong about that. There's something when we watch cinema that we all kind of, at least most of us in our guts, know is right and wrong. And so this is a story of good versus evil and redemptive qualities of a evil, quote unquote, Addams family, redeeming them into the good side. Everyone thought she was the bad one, did half the picture.
Yeah.
And then when it was really needed, she stepped up in the place of good. But then, spoiler alert, she gets stabbed and dies. And Goody Addams as a ghost comes back. And in that moment when she's about to die, again, viewers in their guts are just like, no. They're like, I don't want this guy, but why did she have to die?
Yeah.
And then I found myself rooting for her resurrection, right?
Yeah,
because there's good in her.
Yeah.
And so I loved that complex that they did of like, there was a resurrection of both good and evil, similar to like Harry Potter and all of that, where I was like, why do I not want this to happen? But now that this hero died, why do I want resurrection to happen? Is my hope in them? Like, where is... And so that was a really cool parallel, because then the ghost passed through her. She would never see her ancestor again. That was the deal. But she's like, I'm willing to give that sacrifice of never seeing Goody Addams again, so I can save the people now.
Yeah.
So I can come back, I can defeat the evil. And it was good versus evil, both resurrected. And it was cool to see my heart kind of be torn of like, while both were happening, why I felt that way. And I think that's a really cool parallel of like, even Jesus' disciples were like, I thought you said you were king. I thought you said you were God. Now you're gone? I'm going to run. Like, you just got sacrificed on this cross. I got to hide.
Like, I'm with you while you're here with me, but as soon as you're out, I'm out. Like, what else do I do?
Yeah, their hope was crushed.
Yeah.
And, but then resurrection, you root for that because Jesus is good. He is perfection, right? And I love him. Like, my life, why I'm so in love with Jesus is just because of the hope I can give in a perfect God that fights for good in resurrection. So I know, once I pass, there's a hope in this resurrection that is beautiful, that is for good. It's not for evil.
Yeah.
And so that's why I love following Jesus, is because he is a God that stands for the resurrection into perfection and into good and into beauty and into love, which is what we were fighting for with Wednesday. We wanted her to resurrect, not the other guy.
Yeah.
So I thought that was a cool parallel.
Look at this. See, the reason why I'm glad we get to have conversations like this is because I feel like if a random everyday conservative Christian, if that's one of you, hey, welcome. We're glad you're here.
We've been them.
If they're just like going through Netflix and they see Wednesday's show pop up, it might be common to be like, oh, that's probably too dark. I'm not going to watch that. And that's fine if that's your conviction, but I think what's really cool is that you can watch a show like Wednesday that is all about this like darker, kind of horrific, murders are happening. How do we solve this mystery? Monsters, creepy. There's some blood. And you can pull out the importance of the resurrection of Jesus Christ or the battles of good and evil, or someone who's pegged as bad becoming good. You can pull out some really cool themes. And so I hope that encourages you if you've kind of said, I'm not going to watch this, or maybe this is too much for me. By all means, follow your own conviction. But if you're interested in giving it a shot, that's kind of the lens we see all of the stuff we watch through, is what nuggets of truth is in here. If these shows are being made by people who are made in the image of God, then we know that innately there is something from God in them. How do we pull that out and say, look at this cool thing, and how does it point back to Jesus?
Absolutely. Yeah, why am I resonating with this, and how can I apply it to my life?
How can Wednesday Addams teach me the gospel?
Yeah, and I think it happened in this show, which was cool. So I heard you have one more point.
I have one more point, and it's just kind of a general point. Virality. This show took off really quickly, and if you are a Netflix person, you know that Stranger Things took off really quickly, and Outer Banks had its moment, and there's different moments in time where a show on Netflix goes viral. And I wanted to kind of discuss, what is it about Wednesday that made it this viral sensation? Yeah. And I think it's interesting because I've never seen this happen before. And granted, like, we're youngins.
Well, you maybe. I hit 30 this past year.
Woo! But I think it's with the rise of Netflix and streaming services like Hulu, HBO Max, Starz, there's all kinds of options. Like, now more than ever, there's this access to something that unites everyone, whereas maybe 10, 15 years ago, we're all hunkered down on a Tuesday night to watch the same show on ABC.
Or listen to the radio back in the day of the ball game or whatever it was.
Right,
was,
or all go to the theater to like watch this movie in real time. Yeah. But I think with Netflix, what's cool about it is that more than any other streaming service, they really market towards Gen Z and millennials. So they gear it towards a younger audience, I think, both with their social media presence and
casting
and the new stuff that they come out with. Percentage wise, there's more stuff that gears towards younger audiences dramas in high school, like To All the Boys I've Loved, or adventure shows like
Ginny and
Outer
Georgia.
Banks, Ginny and Georgia. Like, they're always trying to create new content quickly that is for a younger audience. So Wednesday falls into that bucket. So that's like a bonus point. Then they're casting Jenna Ortega, who's from Disney Channel. So people like me who...
And you.
I was cusped right at the end. I think she was on Bizarre Vark, like right when I was in college. So I didn't grow up with her, but she's still young enough, and I have some memories of her. So it's kind of a cool, like, I want to see her succeed.
And she was in You, was what I was saying.
Yes,
Wow.
she was in the show
And You.
You. I was like, me? I wasn't
And
in
You. No,
I
and
wasn't
You.
in Wednesday. That'd be cool, though. But so they have both the casting and the demographic and the setting. And, like, our generation, millennials, we're kind of like the people who grew up with Harry Potter and some of these, like, wizardy, kind of dark, but not celebrating gore genres that really bring in the mystery. So our generation's like, oh, I like Harry Potter. I might like this. And we kind of have the memory of the Addams Family from our parents. So
Absolutely.
I think all those things, it was very, like,
And
strategic.
The botanist, right, with the glasses and
Yes.
the red boots, originally played Wednesday Addams. Not the original. Rest in peace to her. She just passed.
Ooh.
But the
Yes,
botanist
in the
is,
show,
yeah,
not so
she
long ago.
was Wednesday Addams like 20, 30 years ago. So our parents that have that, what is it?
Nostalgic.
Yeah, nostalgia around it. They might want to watch it to see the reenactment. So it kind of did cross generations.
Yeah, so I think it's a very strategic kind of way to make a new show, to launch it while everyone's on Christmas break. That was
Smart.
strategic. Netflix knows what they're doing. While everyone's home, and it's kind of right in the sweet spot of it's a little too much for... I personally have like more of a conservative approach to this. So I would say it's a little too much for middle schoolers, but it's like it's nothing that's too crazy, and it has the mystery aspect. So it perfectly encompasses like age 15 to like 55. I think anyone in that bucket who loves a good mystery could enjoy this show. So I think...
Our cat just fell off a chair, so just ignore that
Buddy.
sound for a minute.
But I think that's one of the reasons why it went viral. It's a wide range of audiences that can be captured, and it has that underdog aspect of like anyone can relate to that storyline. So it brings in all these niche people who are like, wait, I've always felt like I'm othered, or I've always been into this kind of darker stuff, so let me watch it, as well as the everyday person who's like, I love a good mystery and it's Christmas break, what else? So I think all of that together brings in this like virality, sensational thing. I think the only thing to look out for that I'm curious is like, will it continue? They did get approved for season 2. So I'm excited to see, will it be as good as the first season? Will it stay viral, trendy, whatever? But regardless of all of that, like, how does the actual show stand up? And like, will more audiences still appreciate it?
Absolutely. And I think that's what was really cool about this one is it didn't lose identity while spreading over all of that, right?
Yeah.
There are a lot of shows out there that I don't think are as good because they try to target the 15-year-olds and the 20-year-olds and the 50-year-olds, and they try to mix it all together and try to keep everyone's attention, but they lose their own identity in the meantime and force stuff into the story. But this felt very Tim Burton, very Addams Family, very like fantastical. Like it spread across a wide range of, that was actually hard to say, spread across a wide range of...
It's the wine.
No, it's actually not. And it still landed, right?
Yeah.
It didn't like lose me halfway through because I was like, oh, that's for 15-year-olds, and I didn't relate to that episode at all. Or, oh, I didn't understand that reference to... I think families can really come together and enjoy this for everyone in that kind of... I mean, again, with your own... have your own, scale on what's good for your family and not, but this is a good one that I feel like a lot of people can sit down and enjoy a good show. I would call it a good show.
I would too. And one other thing I was going to say about that is that one of my peeves is when they're making stuff for younger audiences that has a lot of like sexual content in it. And this is again one of those shows that doesn't even touch that at all. Maybe there's like one kiss or something, but that's it. And I appreciate that because it can just stay kind of a family friendly, darker mystery that we can all enjoy instead of one of these like don't look like kind of thing.
And there's
so
still
I do
love triangles and who and Xavier and
but to me I gravitate towards cinema that's more of this like mystery monster, like something's happening versus like I feel kind of icky watching. So I do appreciate that it stayed viral, but not because they were like showing skin or anything weird.
Which is what a lot of things feel like they have to do anymore to be able to have relevance to modern society.
Like Wednesday's the most like dressed. Her collars are up to here. She is wearing all black, long sleeves. But I think it's time to score.
Really cool. It is. So we do a scoring system. We have 5 different points and then an overall. And so we both separately scored acting, cinematography, story, how kid-friendly and family-friendly this is, overall depth of the show or film, and then just an overall score that we would give it on whether we should watch it or not.
Whether you should watch it.
Yes, whether you should. So I know thus far we said, starting with Avatar, we were like, of course we're going to recommend that. And I think we're going to lean into a lot of the good viral things and say why they're good and why they are not.
Totally.
But we'll also maybe press into some that maybe aren't so good and say maybe you should or why they are bad. So I know we're kind of leaning on heavily favored films in the good category right now, but I'm excited to hear your scoring. So what you got?
Okay. I said for acting, 7.5, because I don't think anyone was bad at acting or anything like that, but these characters are hard to portray. I think Jenna Ortega did an amazing job at Wednesday. Like, it was serious and quirky and funny, but sometimes it would be in my brain, if you're in a hyper emotional role or there's these dramatic scenes or these huge monologues, that is like really intense. It takes a lot of talent to do. I don't think this had many opportunities for her to like show off that crazy emotional side, but when it did happen, there's a scene when the little hand gets stabbed, the thing gets stabbed, and it brought me like to tears because I was like, she's really like going for it. Like, her acting skills I think are really dynamic, and there wasn't enough opportunity to really show that off. But overall, the whole cast...
She only blinked like 5 times.
I know. Overall, the whole cast, I think, did a great job. Not like completely stellar, but like I think they deserve a 7.5 from me.
Absolutely. So my scoring is actually similar. And I just agree that this is one of those that is very enjoyable, but it's hard to stand out for performance.
Right.
And I don't know exactly what it is, and I've tried to put a name on it over the years for like why that is. It might just be a genre thing. But yeah, this one didn't ask for over performances or leaning on one character in particular for strength in acting. It was just the character development was unique enough that they could just press an Enid was very colors and I'm happy go lucky.
I like her.
And Wednesday just needed to be like, that is phenomenal acting, but it doesn't come across because it's just
deadpan.
That's it. Right. And so I give it a 7.2.
Okay, cool.
I thought it was great and enjoyable, and I think it takes an incredible amount of talent for those actors to do what they did. But I don't think that the show allows for as good of a performance as they could give if they had a different character. So
I agree.
I couldn't give it a higher score, but yeah, right in the mid-7s, I give it 7.2, 7.5.
And I wonder if that's partly because Tim Burton does a lot of animated stuff.
And claymation.
And maybe he's used to controlling the look of something. Yeah. So maybe the direction on this was more like,
we'll get him on the next podcast and ask him.
Yeah, we'll ask Tim. So, Tim, if you're watching.
If you're watching, let us know.
Let's go. All right, cinematography, I gave it a 6. Good, but again, genre related. It doesn't have to be something outstanding. It was intriguing, crisp, clear. Like, I never noticed any like issues about being out of focus or continuity or anything like that. But it was also very like, the set was heavy and rich, so it was kind of like full all the time. It's either like a dark, moody lighting in the dorm or in a classroom or in the forest. So I think because of the darkness and the nature of like the way they colored the whole thing, cinematography doesn't have to stand out, kind of like the acting. It can be like, it's just happening. You didn't have to notice it. So I gave it a 6. I think a fair score.
Awesome. Hello, Appa. So our cat just joined us on the couch if you're listening and not watching.
Sweet boy.
So I went a different route, and I might have to do some internal deep dive for why I did this for cinematography but not for acting. I give it a 7.9.
Okay.
But for almost the same reason of what you just said.
Yeah.
So like the set was so beautiful and the lighting was so beautiful and the framing, right? Like the actual frames that they chose, that the camera felt invisible. Yeah. Which is good cinematography.
That's true.
And so it allowed me to experience the space in these wonderful, beautiful sets and locations. And India's not listening to me now. She's holding the cat. So I think Appa needs to go so you can actually be involved in this conversation.
Good cinematography.
Yeah, he says, I love Wednesday. He watched it with us.
Yeah, he did.
But there, like for acting, I was like, there wasn't a space to overact, so I ranked it low. But in cinematography, there wasn't a space to do over the top camera work, but then I
True.
ranked it higher. So I don't know exactly why my heart's like there. Maybe just because I'm a camera guy.
Yeah.
But I appreciated the cinematography that they were strategic on placements. They made you feel a certain way with the angles, with the lens choices, with the wide shots, with the close-ups, with you know, they didn't overuse a Dutch angle to make you feel off about things. They let you into the environment and experience the space, and the camera felt invisible. I was just like watching it. So
No, I
that's
feel that.
give it a 7.9.
Nice.
It's
Okay.
almost 2 points higher.
Storyline.
Okay.
I said 8.8.
Okay.
I thought it was intriguing. I'm a 26-year-old adult, and I was constantly like on the edge of my seat. There were a couple moments where I was guessing what was going to happen, and it did, but it never fully, like, not all of my guesses came true. There was enough twists and turns that kept me intrigued, so I wasn't like bored with it. And I felt like it was really interesting from the first episode through the last. Like, everything kept a nice pace, kept me intrigued the whole time. There was growth, there was twists and turns. So, yeah, 8.8.
Awesome. I give it an 8.1. So also in the 8s.
Okay.
I thought it, and this might just be, a screenwriter and a storyteller and all that. And so there were parts that were predictable. There were some parts that I called that you didn't, and there were parts that you called that I didn't. But an 8.1 rating for me is also like, the story was just good. Like, I think sometimes we want the next big, crazy, unseen story, and I wasn't expecting that. And this offered that, though. Like, it's a very... Any movie, if you break it down to its basics, or any show, it's kind of the same story. Like, we can't... It's hard to make something that feels unique and different. And I think people latched onto this because it was a story that's been told multiple times in multiple ways. But this one felt original in a way.
Yeah.
And it brought you into the characters, and it made you... Like, it's kids at a school, and there's competition, and there's good and bad.
Sure.
And there's an underdog, and, like... But the story, somehow they did it that I really cared, and there were enough twists and turns, and you're rooting for people, and then you were wrong as a watcher, and they were wrong as a, character on the screen, and it was just a really cool story that brought me in, and I cared about it. I wanted to watch the next episode because I cared about what happened, which I think is a good story.
Agree.
I think we can nitpick stories sometimes, but what if you just sat back and enjoyed?
Giant. All right, so next is kid-friendly. I said 6, which might be generous depending on who you are. It is gory at times, not in the sense of like someone's, limb is flying off or anything. But there were a few moments where it was like, even for me, like, oof, that's kind of hard to watch. Like, I think in the pilot episode, they go past a car accident and someone's like head is kind of like at an unnatural angle, and there's times when there's a monster that attacks people and you see the blood splatter and stuff. But what I do think kept it a little more in the teenager realm is the monster looks like a Tim Burton character. It's not too gory. It's not too believable.
Big googly eye type.
Yeah, it's still scary if you're like a younger kid. Like, I would say under the age of 12, it's probably scary. But I think they did a good job of making it not like this horrific, scary, gonna give you nightmares type of thing, and more like, it's believably...
It's a monster.
It's believably scary. It's not like Stranger Things monster CGI.
Yeah, it feels like a cartoon monster in a real world, in a sense.
Yeah, so use your best judgment with it.
Absolutely.
If you've got little ones, I would say probably not, but I think around middle school or higher, it'd be fine.
Yeah. So I actually did just change my score for people that were watching. Probably saw me pick up my phone. And that's because originally I was thinking family friendly, and I was kind of talking about the overall score of like generational, but I realized that our scoring system is kid friendly. And so mine's a 6.4. 6.4. I think it's, just everything that you just said. Like, I think a 10-year-old with the right parents around them, talking them through it afterwards, and maybe hiding them from some certain scenes.
Totally.
Is maybe fine. Sorry if you judge me for that.
I guess kids are exposed to stuff that, like, I just don't, like, I feel like a 10-year-old is reading Harry Potter, you know? So,
absolutely.
like, that, it's probably in that realm.
Yeah. And
it's
so
definitely not
your
as
own
scary.
Judgment, but this is a darker drama, fantastical show that I think more kids could watch than not.
Yeah.
But I would watch it with parents, and parents, I would maybe watch it first because it is scary. I mean, there are parts that I was like, I'm not going to watch this at midnight right before I go to bed. I'd rather watch this at, 1:00 p.m. on my lunch break.
Mood.
So
Totally.
I don't have to So just use your best judgment. But yeah, right in that 6 category. It's scary, but be careful. It's enjoyable.
Yeah. All right, depth, and then overall score. We should probably take this one out at some point.
No, I love it. I just have a very different score than you, I'm assuming.
Okay.
I like depth. What? This is my idea. You're saying I have a bad idea with depth?
Depth, I'm going to say 7.5.
I have 6.2.
Okay.
Okay. Why do you want to take out depth?
I just think, so for this one, it wasn't too deep. Like, it's not going to go over your head. They're not talking in weird...
You give it a 7.5. That's pretty deep.
Okay, well, I was just saying, like, deep as far as, like, obviously we excavated quite a bit from this show. Like, there's a lot of good themes to talk about with whoever you're watching it with. So there's stuff that you can pull out of it, but it's not like, you know, this insane plot line or something that's too tricky or too hard to grasp. So that's kind of why I gave it my score.
Yeah. I gave it a little less because, I mean, we even talked about not talking about Wednesday Addams because it was almost hard to find depth.
True.
And at least biblical allusions, but then we sat with it, we chewed on it a little bit, and we're like, okay, there is actually more to offer here. And I think that's important as well as moviegoers and watching TV shows to sit with it a little longer than just an initial reaction of like, oh, that was just surfacey.
Yeah.
So we sat with it, we chewed on it a little bit, and it was a little deeper than I thought. But again, it was a little simple.
Yeah.
Which I think made it good. I didn't think it tried to overcomplicate. There's a mystery. They're trying to solve it. There's twists and turns. There's good and evil.
Yeah.
And I don't think too much depth was needed. I think when they leaned into generational past and all of that, it helped add depth and, you know, over generational trauma from this same school and this place and these, you know, parents to kids and good and evil and the outcasts and the normies. Like there's a lot to talk about and it has some depth to it, but also you can enjoy it just at a surface level, and that's totally fine.
One thing really quickly, just a side note, when I watched this at the end, when there's like Goody Addams comes back and there's this like pilgrim kind of situation who's trying to eradicate the outcasts and just have it all normies. I don't know if anyone else has seen Hocus Pocus 2, but I watched it on Halloween and I had never seen the Hocus Pocus stuff, so I got caught up and watched it. And little bit of the same exact plot line, and I remember mentioning it to you. I was like, I know they didn't plagiarize this, but it was kind of interesting how Hocus Pocus 2 came out in October and Wednesday came out in December, so they both were in production likely at the same time. But in that movie, there's a very, very similar plot line that goes on. It's this pilgrim, literally the same hat and all.
Yeah. The pilgrim in Jericho founder. So what is the
Okay.
He founded Jericho, but his name is Joseph Crackstone.
Okay, yes. Okay, in Hocus Pocus 2, there's the same, literally the same pilgrim hat and all. It's this guy who comes out and is like, you're a witch, you're terrible, burn the witch. Get rid of all of the people who are different from us, all the witches. And in Wednesday, it's the same idea. This old pilgrim is like, you're an outcast. Get rid of all the outcasts. So I don't think
for a while and all that
yeah,
stuff,
I don't think they plagiarized off of each other. It
wasn't
probably impossible.
Too deep.
But yeah, I think that goes with the depth thing. Is like it's hard to have an original idea, and even that had overlap in the same release year. So might be a little tension between those two. I wonder what the hot goss is in Hollywood.
Absolutely. So what is your overall score, baby girl?
Okay, honey sweets.
I've been changing mine for the past 50 minutes while we've been talking about this.
Where I think this should fall in your CineMcCue is 8.3. If you care about a little bit about virality and wanting to know, like you don't want FOMO, you want to know what everyone's talking about, I think watch it as soon as possible. If you don't care and you're just like, eventually I'll get to it, or I watched it already, but I want to maybe bring my family in and we'll have a fun little movie week with it, then I would say 8.3. Like watch it soonish because it'd be fun to get in the know and kind of know what's happening before the next season comes out. Yeah. But I like being in the know. So I'm like, oh, what's everyone talking about? Let's watch Wednesday. But if you don't care, then maybe down the line.
Yeah, my overall is a little less. I gave it a 7.8. I changed this a lot of times. I think why I changed it lower, I made it lower and lower every time I changed my score. because it was great. And every time I finished an episode again, I wanted to watch the next episode. Like, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought it was incredibly well done. The world building was phenomenal. The characters were fun. And they leaned into, nostalgia of a storyline and dove into a character that has been around for years and years and years. I did find myself only talking about it usually because of the virality of it. And I found myself, I would rank other shows and movies higher that aren't talked about in like common culture as much. Like, I only have a couple friends that watch Peaky Blinders, but I talk about it so often, and I would rank that one higher than this. And we'll hopefully maybe like I'll do a episode on Peaky Blinders, or maybe 5, because I find myself talking about it when it's not the hot topic and when it's not viral. And like, I'm talking about it for reasons why it's good and not because of why it's popular. And so I think it's very, very solid. I mean, I still give it in the 7s. Like, if I didn't like this, that'd be 4s, right? So
if you're like me and you care about being part of the cool kids, watch it now. And if you're more like Ian,
you should absolutely watch it now. I think it was great. I'm excited for season 2. I'm not trying to bash on it in any means. I get it. I just have a specific taste in film that this landed in the high-ish 7s. Yeah. And I think that is a solid score. And I would say put it high on your CineMcCue because it's worth it. It's really worth it.
It's real cute.
There are many shows that I think are also viral that I don't want to watch the next episode. And it takes forever for me to get through. But this one, I really wanted to watch it, so it's good.
Word. All right. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Have you seen Wednesday?
Let us know in the comments below if we think India will ever finish a drink during this podcast.
Probably not.
And let us know what you think in the comments below. And next, after this, we are going to be talking about another award-nominated winning film that we watched recently.
Yes.
And it's called, drumroll please, Where the Crawdads Sang.
Where the Crawdads Sang.
And I will just let you know on a little cliffhanger that we were nervous when this movie came out. We were nervous. I don't even know if India remembers why, but we just thought the storyline
yeah.
So we were nervous. We will tell you why later, but next time on CineMcCue, we will be talking about Where the Crawdads Sang.
And all the craziness around it.
Yes.
It's very good. So if you haven't yet, watch Where the Crawdads Sing. I think it's on Netflix.
Absolutely.
Go ahead and take a minute and watch that. Jot down your notes, and we'll see if we can compare things in our next episode.
Absolutely. Until next time, this has been CineMcCue, and we'll catch you later.
Wednesday on a Sunday. Bye.